Would you, all folks, silence your cell phones, please, and join me in the pledge of allegiance. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'll officially open the meeting. Any additions or
No
revisions?
changes, we're on a special session, so.
Okay. And on the special session, we handle only what's on the agenda.
Figure it out.
Terry, did you have something to say other than what's on the agenda?
Do I? No, he was just trying to make his phone be quiet.
I just went outside because it makes it
Okay.
No, we're here to listen to how your commentaries on the nuisance issues.
Yeah. Yeah, we have.
Mr. Bailey?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, we just opened a session and Darwin's coming in. Darwin is our planner who also deals with the nuisance. Darwin, you have two things for us today, right?
Yeah. Start with the nuisance stuff. Two different nuisances actually recently came in. One off of Lakeview Lane, we'll deal with that one first. It's been in the office the longest. Three property owners up in the Summer Lake area have made a complaint on a property that's off of Lakeview Lane. Lakeview Lane and Carlin Lane run parallel, east and west, off of, on the east side of Highway 31. And the complaint really has to do with a lot of vehicles stored on the property. The original complaint said 10, they have updated the complaint to say between 15 and 20. You know, Commissioner Kester drove past this the other day. From the aerial photography, which is all I have so far, I haven't actually done a site visit, but it's in your packet there of information, and you know, they're kind of nicely aligned at least. And from the story is that the property owner fixes them up and sells them. So it's probably just a little hobby that this guy's doing. To me, it almost seems more like a land use violation than a nuisance. However, there may be other debris or, you know, scrap metal or things flying around on the property. I don't know. So again, I haven't looked at that one too much, but maybe Commissioner Kent.
I was up there on Thursday, not for this per se, but for a Fish and Wildlife Commission meeting at the Courthouse. Just running late, I just glanced at it. There's a few more vehicles, they're not up to but you got two property owners right side by side that one amplifies the visual effect of the other.
Yeah, and they look very similar. I mean, just from the aerial photography that you both have there in your packet. So, however, you know, the nuisance wasn't on both properties; it was just on the east property there. So,
Just on the east property?
just on the east property, not on the west property. Yeah, I'm sorry, those aren't labeled very correctly, other than my little arrow at the bottom. So what has happened so far is that I've mailed out a letter to the property owners saying that a report has been filed, and that, you know, the board of commissioners would review, you know, the information given to them, and that we'd move forward if needed. Standard process then would be that if the board or staff determines that it's a nuisance, and we send them a notice of abatement with a 10-day cleanup time, or they need to appeal it if they feel that they're not a nuisance. And then, you know, they're given that time to clean it up. In the past, we've, you know, had responses within those 10 days, and then we will you know, give them a certain amount of time beyond the 10 days to at least have a plan to clean it up, and then we follow up as we go along. So that's kind of that file. So there's some other questions.
So your recommendation to us is, you mentioned that.
It's kind of tough for me to make a recommendation on this one. I haven't yet heard from the property owner. The letter was just sent the other day. Actually on Thursday, the 23rd. Letter was also sent to the 3 complaint tours, and they will, you know, certainly want to know what's going on with the property now it's getting cleaned up. But I just have a hard time doing this one as a nuisance because it doesn't seem like we're gonna remove anything. I mean, there might be a little bit of stuff, and I think the property owner will respond. I'll be surprised if they don't here in about within the next week. But the vehicles themselves, again, I think it goes back down to probably a land use violation, meaning that they would need to, probably file a home occupation for just a personal business out of their home, which most of it's gonna happen outside, work on the cars and stuff outside is gonna be allowed, under certain restrictions,
Yes,
time, news, air quality, kind of,
Yes, sir.
odors, things like that.
If they're not doing it for a business, but appears that those areas, we'll get that clarified when he responds.
Yeah, exactly, yeah, when you
But
respond.
if it's not doing business, is there a limitation on numbers of cars
So,
or vehicles?
there is, and I don't have our ordinance in front of me, but from my recollection, it's 8 vehicles that are non-operable. So, these cars are getting fixed up, how many of them are really running, that's gonna be the question. And he, the property owner would know best, he could tell us, but I mean, if you're a multimillionaire and you got a bunch of vehicles, there's nothing saying you can't have 50 cars on your property. It's just ones that aren't working, and then their parts as well, so if you've got,
So if you have 8 non-operable, it
Cars.
doesn't matter what size your property is, doesn't
Yeah.
matter
yeah.
how they have them
That's how the
arranged?
ordinance reads, and it falls under the, junkyard, wrecking yard kind of, and I think it's just in that definition, in Article 1. I haven't looked at it for a little while, but.
I don't know if Mr. Bailey has anything he wants to say there. Mr. Bailey, before you maybe weigh in here, I think it sounds like, Darwin, from what you're describing is something we can see the visual, but with your interaction, it'd be good if you were able to, well, wait till you hear from them, but then go up there.
Yeah,
And let's get this figured out, because it very well could be a land use, and then within that land use,
Yeah.
how these vehicles are arranged and
Yeah.
everything else about it, if it's not a health or safety issue.
Yeah, and typically a home occupation too is, you're running a business and you might have some customers coming to the house and things like that. And, from all I've heard so far is that, you guys sells off these cars when he gets them fixed up. So I don't necessarily know if that's even the business itself. So I mean, just a little hobby thing, I think he's retired. But we'll find out more, and then if Jim would like to weigh in, we'll see what else.
Yeah. Anything for us, Jim?
Yeah, I think that's the right way to go on this, because, I mean, it could qualify as either a non-compliant business, or it might fall into being a nuisance. It depends on how he conducts his hobby. If we decide that it's not a business, then it will depend on how he conducts his hobby as to whether or not it actually constitutes a nuisance. I mean, as we've discussed before, one of the difficulties with a nuisance is that it is very often in the eye of the beholder. It doesn't look attractive. So we have to be really careful for certain activities as to whether or not it's just someone who's the neighbor just says, I don't like him doing this. But since we have not heard anything back from this individual, that's the other part of a nuisance notice is fair opportunity for the person who has been notified of the nuisance to respond, and an opportunity to do something about the condition. So I think we're still, with regard to this one, in the fact-finding phase, and my recommendation is we don't take any action right now other than to continue the fact-finding.
Mr. Bailey, I don't know if you've got this aerial view in front of you, but Darwin.
No, I don't.
Okay. You're saying the property to the west wasn't, no one sent anything in. Was that one of the folks that sent in?
It was.
A letter?
No, it was.
Okay.
That would have been really bad.
Yeah, that would have been.
No, it wasn't. I'm glad you asked to clarify that.
Well, just,
Yeah, that'd be interesting.
Yeah, 3 individuals who submitted the complaint are not the residents associated with it.
And they're not adjacent, they're close.
When do you think we could get an update back from you on this?
At your next meeting in a week. I'll give you another update.
If this individual does not respond, what is our course of action at that time?
So, if they don't respond, say by Tuesday, I don't know,
This
I don't have my
Tuesday?
schedule in front of me, no, next Tuesday. I believe you guys have a meeting on Wednesday next week. Tuesday and Wednesday, so if we haven't heard anything by Tuesday, maybe Tuesday afternoon, I could get up there and just assess it completely myself, and then we could give you a final.
Yeah, 'cause
Recommendation on
Mr. Bailey will
Wednesday.
be here Wednesday, so that'd be
Yeah,
good
so-
to get the update with him here.
I do have the aerial view of that one. I was looking at the other complaint. I do have the aerial view.
Well, we'll leave this on the table till the gentleman responds to us,
Yep.
or not. The other nuisance.
The other nuisance is off West Side, actually the West Side store, which is not in business at the moment. But that is being used, to my understanding, as a residence, which I think it always had a residence, so that's not really the main issue there. What is the issue is, what you're seeing in your packet is photos that those that were complaining had submitted. And then also, what I haven't gotten to you, which I can pass around and make copies for the record, are the site visit that I took on Thursday, which are the same pictures essentially. No change that I noticed from taking the pictures and what I saw originally in the nuisance complaint that was filed. So, this is right across the street to the north of the West Side School, Union School. There is definitely an odor, and it's not, just an agricultural odor that we're all used to, but something that is, is probably coming from the house. Odors are hard to tell, but, I left my windows down, and there's definitely some odors. So there's a trailer right in front, that sits diagonal across the intersection there, out of the intersection, obviously, but in front of the store. It's full of a bunch of garbage. There's just a lot of garbage on the property.
When you say
Campers.
Household garbage.
Yeah, household garbage, it was, take a lot of time to analyze everything that's in the trailers, but,
You could do a taste test.
yeah, taste tests and all that kind of stuff. But it's, it's definitely needs to be cleaned up. My recommendation is, I've sent them a letter also last Thursday, might have actually been the day before, actually on Wednesday. And then again, there's about 20, that's maybe a rough estimate of the property owners that are in the area that complained, page and a half of property owners that complained
Now,
about
this
this.
is a scenario, you have the owner of the property renting to another person, and
That's possible. I don't know. All I was able to, get from this is the current property owner from the assessor's office, and send them a letter. And then all the residents that are in the area that complained, we also sent them a letter just saying the process has been started. I don't know if any of them are in the room present, I don't think so, but it's been started, and then we will, again, this one is my recommendation. But my recommendation to clean up, but we also still haven't, given that fair, time allowance to give a response, but the letter that's sent it just says that we're gonna follow up, so it doesn't give a certain timeline in which they need to contact us, but the next letter would.
Yeah.
That notice of abatement letter would, so.
Well, I would totally agree with moving forward with this through the process.
Yeah.
I don't know, do you need a motion or concurrence?
concurrence, I believe.
Okay.
So a notice of abatement will be sent with that 10-day time period. That's what you guys are concurring to.
Yes.
Mr. Bailey?
Let me just be, let me be clear about the process here. The notice that we send out, are you saying that has not been sent out yet? This is just sort of a preliminary report on following up on the complaint?
Yeah, so, and I think
Okay.
the attachments that I gave to you just have those letters that I sent to the property owners, which is just, and it just says regarding nuisance report filed, and that just says that,
Okay.
county policy is that this is gonna get, the complaint's gonna get forwarded to the board, and then, if it's determined that it's a nuisance, then there'll be timelines to correct any and all noted issues. That would be the follow-up letter, so.
Okay. As we go forward on these things, I don't know that we need to have this sort of preliminary report to the board, because part of our process is that, you know, the property owner gets the notice and is directing the property owner to take appropriate action. And then they have the ability to appeal anything. So I like the caution, and maybe we can make this the way we go forward in the future, to be absolutely clear about it. But as long as, I guess, let me just back off and say, as long as we make sure we follow these 10-day periods that are in our ordinance, that's the most important thing, to make sure we do those things.
Right. Yeah, and the nuisance complaint form, you know, that is the standard process which we've adopted. That is the way we're accepting nuisances, and has in it, you know, quotes directly the last pages 4 and 5 of the ordinance, so that are for the complainants to keep, shows that process, and it describes the notice that we send out and all the details that need to be on that. But this first part that we've kind of had a practice of doing, which really isn't clear in the ordinance, is this kind of warning, heads up to the property owner that it is going to be reviewed by the board, and if determined by the board, or the ordinance does say staff, or, you know, appointed staff or whatever, designated staff, I think is the word it uses, but, that then the notice of abatement would be mailed to them, certified, and given that 10-day timeline, so. But this, you know, I've only been doing this for about 2 years on this side of duties assigned, and we've always followed this practice where we're sending out this warning letter first.
Well,
I think that's totally appropriate, but what I'm saying is that when you come before the board, which what we're doing today is the board gets the report and then by concurrence allows you to proceed with the notice, you know, after they ask you some questions.
Mm-hmm.
So there doesn't have to be a resolution or a motion by the board to go forward here, so.
Yeah.
And it is out concurrence, I believe,
Yep.
to proceed forward.
Notice of abatement will be sent, and I'll follow up with you. It'll be more like, you know, 2 weeks, I guess. We'll give 10 days.
Well, maybe on Wednesday, Darwin, you can give us an update if you've heard anything
Yeah,
back
I will.
from this
Yeah, for
particular.
sure.
Also, and this is for legal counsel also, the degree of cleanup is a question in the back of my mind. If he gets to 80% cleanup or 90% cleanup, at what point do we consider it good enough?
Well, with regard to the store, I guess I'll point this out and answer the question. With regard to the store, what's in front of the store probably is borderline as to whether or not that's actually a nuisance. What's behind the store clearly is a bunch of trash and stuff and would constitute a nuisance. If someone actually has sort of an ongoing business and those things are being moved around in front of the store, then that's not going to be a nuisance. So what we have to do is be as clear as possible to someone as to what they need to clean up. You kind of go in stages. I mean, the front of this store doesn't have to look like it's brand new. So I think the more we stick with things like trash and debris and something causing a stench, basically a lot of junk, which is clearly what's going on in the back of the store, the better, we're on better footing there than simply, boy, this person really is messy.
Well, Mr. Bailey, in front of the store, I was out there the other day too, and there's a trailer, a flatbed type trailer with some racks that has multiple bags of what appears to be household garbage, and you know, I didn't go over to it either. But so that is present out front under the overhang or near the overhang.
Yeah, that kind of thing, clearly that's part of the nuisance. What I was referring to are those things that are sort of lined up near the entrance to what used to be the store.
Yeah,
You know, so,
okay.
Like the camper and car and so forth.
yeah, those things where somebody's using a camper or a car as though it's a dump, a dump truck, yeah.
We may have another land use issue embedded in this too, because I don't know if some of those trailers are being used to live in. Darrell will determine that.
So, real quick, the new notice of abatement includes, a couple of things which the ordinance requires, and the description of the property, the description of the violation, and then the action to be taken, within the 10 days, and it usually is removal of all those, violations. And then there's the, and then it gives a little notice that it's included in here in the language that, unless it's cleaned up within 10 days, then the county will remove or abate the nuisance, with the cost thereof being assessed as a lien against the property. And then we've already talked about, they have that right to appeal as the final language really in this 2-page document that's sent to the property owner, so.
What's the time frame? We give them 10 days, and then if they appeal, what's the time frame thereafter?
The appeal, then we'll have to hold some kind of hearing, I guess, and I don't really remember reading in the nuisance how that gets noticed, but certainly we've.
Well, here's what the ordinance says. We send them a statement specifying the action that they need to do, and saying that you've got 10 days to do it. Along with a statement that says if you don't do it within 10 days, then the county's going to take the action and charge them. And they also get a statement saying, part of the statement is that they can appeal that finding as long as they do it within 10 days. So they get the notice, they got a 10-day period to respond and either address it or appeal to the board. If they appeal to the board, then we have to set it for them to come before the board and let them say what they're going to say. So they're going to end up having, depending on when they appeal, longer than just 10 days.
In which time they might continue to work on cleaning up, which is
Right.
our whole purpose anyway,
Yeah.
our whole doing this.
Okay.
So, these two were on the agenda. This is growing, each day that we hold a meeting on this, and
When you
it
say
sparks
this.
people's interest, nuisances itself. So I just got one handed to me today, which is, I've had phone calls, Terry's in the room to Crawford, and it's something that you guys will need to bring up. I haven't been to it yet. I've looked at it on the aerials, I've seen the photos that have been submitted. Certainly is a nuisance. I feel definitely that we need to move forward and send a letter, and probably next week I'll give you an update.
And maybe you'll be able to
Yeah,
make that in your trip.
exactly. I'll
Okay.
take a little bit further, be a good round
Good.
trip, so we'll get into that. Plan Commission recommendations, next thing that I have, last thing. Hopefully, the Plan Commission currently has two vacancies. One left by Donald Patch Parker, who resigned back in November, and then the other vacancy was just recently made by Tom Burkholder, who is taking another job. So, we've been advertising for both these positions, most recently, and two that are open currently. We filled one of the other ones with a Summer Lake resident, Michael King, and Meredith Smith was also a position that had expired in December, so it was re-recommended by the Planning Commission. You've got this in your summary right there. We've had 3 applications come in, 2 of which the Planning Commission didn't feel like they wanted to move forward on at our last meeting, last Tuesday. But then a third one came in, which you have in front of you, which is Jalen Sheffield, who's also in the Summer Lake area, his family is, but he's got a Paisley address. Positions, I want to say it's position 7 on the board, which I have in front of me, is currently held by Bob Pardee, but it's a central Lake County position. My recommendation is to move him into position 2, which is a South Lake County position, and then to appoint Jalen to position seven, which is a central county position.
So just for process purposes, it looks to me as though we should reappoint Bob Hardy into position 2 from position 7 first, causing the vacancy in
Yep,
7, and
yep,
then
thanks.
make that appointment. And I will make that motion that we do that. Move Robert Pardee from position 7 to position 2, with that expiring December 31st, 2018.
Which gives them one extra year, not too big of a deal.
I'll second the motion. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Now, this would effectively give us 3 members from basically Summer Lake area, correct?
Yeah,
Michael King
Basically, yeah, I mean,
and,
Chalen's living at the Harvey Ranch, which is right at the south end of Summer Lake, and the other 2 are right off of, kind of the real Summer Lake area. There's no real distinction between what's central, what's north, at least in the Planning Commission's bylaws. And these are just recommended areas. The vacancies that we'll still have left would be still a south position, determining what you guys do. But now that you've filled position 2, which is at South Lake, now we do have 1 in central and still 1 in south. So Chalen, it's definitely my recommendation, was the Planning Commission's recommendation to fill him in that central spot that was previously held by
Pardee.
Pardee. Yeah.
I'll take a motion.
I'll make a motion that we appoint Chalen Sheffield to serve on the Planning Commission for the remaining term of position 7, Central Lake, expiring December 31st, 2017.
I'll second the motion. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
We strive to get representation from northern, central, and south. No clear demarcation of where any of that is. We've been constantly getting, the Pats have served out of Christmas Valley forever. And many accolades to Pats for holding that for so long. But when we put a decision, we've been getting interest from, I'll call it the central, Paisley, Summer Lake. And we don't really have somebody duly from Fort Park, Silver Lake, Christmas Valley, haven't received application. So we give what we get and take what we get. And we have 3 in central which represent all, they all kind of represent all of Lake County, but specifically from central north.
I appreciate you guys making this, appointments today. May 19th will be the first evidentiary hearing before the Planning Commission for the zoning ordinance update, which hasn't really seen an update since '89, so a major overhaul of our exclusive farm use zones, A1 and A2, and then the forest use zone, F1 zone. So it's nice to have 6 members instead of 5. Hopefully that'll add to the discussion. And Chalen's background, I think, for the Forest Service with the Fremont one.
Well, and I think the real true attribute also for Chalen is that he's born and raised in Lake County. He's committed to Lake County. He's gonna raise his family in Lake County. He really cares about Lake County, so I think that's a good appointment.
Yeah, I do too.
But you said there's 7 positions, but you only have 6 filled,
Right now.
so you're still looking for a 7th
Yeah.
application? Because I'll say something in the paper again.
Yeah, get the clarification from Darwin.
Thanks, Darwin.
Thank you guys. See you later.
Days. Courthouse remodel, request for proposals, award, recommendation, and contract approval.
Yeah, we went out for RFP for remodel of our old library space. And I recommend award to bid to the Rye Builders for $171,236 and 33 cents.
And this is based on not low bid, but criteria.
Yes.
Can you explain that to
So,
the audience?
well, the criteria is we put an RFP out, and as the bids come in, we have a criteria that we go off, scoring criteria off the RFP, and then we score it according to our scoring sheet of what they did, how, if they asked what we were asked for in the RFP, and stuff like that on the structural of it, and just the process of building what we want.
And Mr. Bailey's on the phone, he's reviewed all this. Mr. Bailey, is there any comments you want to make about this?
No, just to reemphasize the fact that the bidding process does not always result in the low bidder getting the bid. It's looking at the entire response to our request for proposals.
Well, and I don't think it'd hurt, Commissioner, just to say, you know, while we're talking about this on the record, that there is some action in the legislature to change the requirements around prevailing wage, which is a bugaboo for small counties, and it's a bugaboo for contractors, because they do have to bid that in and follow all those guidelines and everything else, and it makes it really difficult. We're fortunate enough to be able to do this project, but it's a razor's edge as far as being able to do it, and along with the other improvements, because we've been faced with this. So we're hopeful, at least in the future, that both for the contractors as well as the county, that they do up those limits and make it a little bit easier to swallow.
The prevailing wage limit, I believe, is $50,000 of public funds being expended. If it meets that if the cost meets that or go over, then by law, they have to provide prevailing wage to the employees. Which is good for the employees, but it
Well, that's-
impacts the cost overall by at least 25%.
Yeah, and it's even hard on the contractor. Contractors is one,
The primary contractor
it's
is
tough
not,
on them too.
yeah,
It's-
yeah.
And for the audience on the camera or whatever, this project is where the old museum, library used to be. Of course, they vacated. We're gonna shift some of our offices over to there. That will free up this area to move the assessor's office at that end of the hallway closer to the clerk's office at this end, because they have a lot of interactions. That would thus vacate the assessor's office, and our probation, which is split with juvenile downstairs and adult probation over in Mary's building. It would free up space to move them down at that end, which is closer to the sheriff department. Meanwhile, the rest of us move over there as soon as this contract, you know, refurbish, make office space and so forth.
I think Commissioner Casper is saying we actually have a plan.
Yeah, that's what he's saying. First time.
Yeah.
But it's good for the people and the sitting audits to know what this expenditure is trying to achieve.
I'll make a motion to award the contract to DeVry Builders as stated.
I'll second the motion. Any other discussion? One question. When would we initiate the contract as far as physically initiate?
He wants to start Monday,
A week from today.
a week from today.
Well, he was taking pictures of flooring this morning, and I asked him if I'd missed something over the weekend, if they had all the structure done. And he's not done the flooring, and so.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Nothing else for a special session?
Do you need to do separate motions for the approval of the RFP and for the contract or no?
Yeah. We did one.
Usually we do.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's necessary.
Is that necessary, Jim?
I thought I'm a little confused now. Wait, we put a recommendation based on the response to the request for production, right?
Correct, but there's also a contract. Do those need to be separate motions, or are we okay?
Well, normally they'd happen on 2 different days. We'd approve the RFP and then we'd approve the contract in response to the RFP. So I guess that's where I'm confused about it.
Well, maybe I'll help with removing some of the confusion. I'll go ahead and make a motion that we accept the recommendation from the RFP's proposals.
Second.
And that was DeVry Builder.
All in favor?
Aye. And we made a motion earlier to accept the contract, or I'll
Okay,
just
so
go
the
ahead.
first one was the contract?
Well, unfortunately it was, but
Okay. Super.
maybe
As
we
long as I'm
can,
straight on my notes, that's
Yeah.
all I care about.
we've got it covered, both of them.
Okay.
Is that okay, Mr. Bailey?
Yes, well, have we had the vote yet on the contract?
Yep.
Okay.
That was earlier.
Yep, then we're okay then. We're okay.
Okay.
Anything else within the special session agenda? If not, then 36 minutes after 10, I'll adjourn this meeting.